Hey, happy Thursday, Vintage family. I wanted to dive into our leadership conversations, and I know right now there's a sense that if we have any tone that is not somber, we're doing something wrong, and I don't think that's right. And I'll tell you why I don't think that's right. There's a worship song that we sing, I will praise before my breakthrough. It's just this phrase that we sing. We sang a song last night at the beginning of our gathering that said, let praise be the weapon that silences the enemy. So we have all this theology going on in our worship culture that really teaches us a principle, that if we will allow ourselves to consider it, we have been given this weapon. And I want to remind us of something in Corinthians. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. What does that mean? It means the weapons that we've been given to use as the people of God are not carnal, which means they don't originate in the earth. They originate in heaven. Thought, speech, these things originate in the earth. But the weapons of our warfare are different. And Paul will go on and say this, they're mighty. They're incredibly capable of destroying the works of the enemy. So right now as a church, I want to remind us of something. And I want to remind you of it and make it into a leadership story because it's what I felt like the Lord gave me this morning. And I was asking him about what to respond to and how to respond to all this. He just said, I want you to go take a look at Joseph's brothers. If you're familiar with the story of Joseph, it's in Genesis chapters 43 through about 47. And Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers because they hate him. They hate him because dad favors him and dad takes special care of him. And so they come up with this ingenious plan that they're gonna head off on a trip to buy grain. And as they head off on this trip, they're gonna kill their brother. And along the way, one of the brothers, Reuben, says, we can't kill him. His blood will be on our hands, we'll be guilty. How about we just throw him in a pit? Now, the story would say that Reuben was actually trying to get him to throw him in a pit because he was going to come back. And he was going to let him out and take him back to the father because he thought what the other brothers were doing was wrong. Doesn't work out that way. Reuben leaves to go ahead. They throw him into a pit. Along comes a caravan of people. They sell him into slavery. Fast forward to the end of the story. Joseph's been in Egypt, and there's so much I want to share about his life and what's happened to him, but our teaching team we've been talking about this story, and somebody else already said they want to share it, so I don't want to take away that opportunity. And besides that, that's not what the Lord told me to talk about. He told me to talk about his brothers. You see, his brothers had committed wrong. They sold him into slavery. There was no reason for them to do what they did. They were just full of hate. So we could call it a hate crime. We could call it a absolute wrong use of authority and power because his brothers, he was the youngest. They were his authority, especially in this culture. The older would be honored, would be the authority of the younger. And so they misused their power. They were trusted by dad to take care of and they misused their authority. And what I felt like the Lord highlighted for me is look at the brothers. It's a simple picture of what happens when we make mistakes as people in authority. The word authority right now is being thrown out a lot. I want to talk about authority as being responsibility. So as moms and dads, we have authority. As brothers and sisters, we have authority. As church leaders, we have authority. Maybe you're a manager at work, you have authority. What do you do and how do you handle your situation when you screw up? Do you take that screw up and say, I don't have to do anything about it, I'm the boss? Because what we see here with these brothers comes at the end of the story. They bow low and they say, we have sinned before our God. What I saw in that the Lord gave me is just this incredibly simple idea. The only way you can fix wrong behavior is through honest repentance. No excuses, no justification. We could have seen them say, yeah, we did wrong to you, but you deserved it. You were an idiot. You told us that we were going to bow down before you someday, and you had a dream. They don't do any of that. They just say, we've sinned before God. We were wrong. And they own it. And I love that. And I saw one other thing in this story as I was looking at it, and it's in this phrase. It's towards the end of the story. It's in chapter 44. Joseph has set them up because they don't really know it's him yet. They bring their youngest brother who was born after Joseph. He's the passion of the father, really, because the father thought Joseph had been lost forever and was dead. One of the brothers, Judah, steps forward and says, "My lord the king, I want to talk to you." And essentially what he says is, "I know you want to take this youngest because he stole from you. I want to exchange my life." And I saw a principle that I want to give us in this moment. The word Judah here, his name, it means to praise. Throughout the scriptures, this word Judah is connected to worship. Could I suggest this phrase, Judah stepped forward, is to be for us the idea that worship should lead us in this time. Worship has to be the language that we go through this season in. Why? Because you could say, that feels like I'm ignoring the problem. No. Here's why. Because what we see as we read through this is Judah makes a step forward. For me, instantly the click was worship leads us. What's it lead us into? As Judah goes on, his heart is softened and he says, "Look, let me take his place." And the table gets set for restoration and reconciliation. And I felt like the Lord just whispered to me, challenge the people to be worshipers like never before in this season. In worship, I will soften their hearts and I will set the table for reconciliation and restoration. I'm not just talking about stuff going on in the news. I'm talking about in our lives in general. 2 weeks ago, my biggest concern was just some of the family stories I was hearing about people not doing well in homes because there was a lot of enmity and angst. Can I invite us as a family to push into worship like never before? Because it's in this arena that God prepares our hearts to do what He wants to do. Love you guys. See you Sunday.